Right now, somewhere in Parramatta or Frankston or out past Ipswich, there's a 20-year-old checking their banking app in the Woolies car park. Balance, $340. Rents due Thursday. Hex debt sitting somewhere north of 20 grand, indexed again this June. They're not behind. Nobody at 20 is behind. But nobody tells them that. This isn't a story about getting rich quick. There's no crypto tip, no one trick the banks hate. This is about the actual stages of building wealth in Australia, right now, in 2026. What the mindset looks like at each one, and what the financial literacy actually is, not the Instagram version of it. Every stage is real. Every number is illustrative, not a promise. Markets move, super rules change. Your life isn't a script, but the thinking. The thinking is what compounds. You've probably got one of three things going on. You're studying, you're in your first full-time job, or you're somewhere in the gig economy in between. Your super balance is small, maybe four figures, maybe nothing yet if you've only just started working. Here's the financial literacy piece. Nobody explains properly. Since 1st July 2025, your employer is legally required to pay 12% of your ordinary earnings into your super fund. That's the superannuation guarantee rate, and it's now locked in. No more scheduled increases. And from 1st July 2026, most employers have to pay it with every payslip, not once a quarter. That change is called Payday Super. What it means for you practically, your super starts compounding sooner, and it's much harder for an employer to quietly underpay you for months at a time. Check your payslip against your super fund statement. If the numbers don't line up, you can report it directly to the ATO. The mindset trap at this age isn't spending too much on smashed avo. That meme needed to die a decade ago. The real trap is invisibility. Money problems at 20 feel private and shameful, so nobody compares notes, and everyone assumes they're uniquely bad at this. You are not uniquely bad at this. The system was genuinely harder to navigate for your generation than for the one before it. Higher house prices relative to income. A HECS help debt that indexes every year. And a rental market that eats a bigger share of your pay than it used to. The one habit that actually matters here: open a high-interest savings account, separate from your everyday account, and automate a transfer the day your pay lands, even if it's $40. Not because $40 changes your life, because the habit changes your life. You're training the muscle before the money shows up. That's the real first rule of this whole script. If you're eligible and thinking about a first home eventually, look into the First Home Super Saver scheme. It lets you put voluntary extra contributions into super and later withdraw them, plus earnings minus tax, to help fund a first home deposit. It's not right for everyone, and the rules around contribution caps and withdrawal limits are specific. So this is genuinely a read the money smart page or speak to an advisor situation, not a trust the finance TikTok situation. This is where most people's financial literacy either clicks into place or stalls out entirely. And the difference isn't intelligence. It's exposure to the right information at the right time. By your late 20s, you might be earning a proper salary. Bills are covered. You've maybe got a few thousand in savings. This is what feels like doing fine. And it is fine. But fine is not the same as building. Here's the mindset shift that separates people at this stage. They stop asking, "Am I okay this month?" and start asking, "What is my money actually doing while I sleep?" That second question is uncomfortable because most people, even in their 30s, have never run the actual maths on their own retirement. So run it. Take your current super balance, your current contribution rate, a realistic long-run investment return, something conservative, historically diversified share portfolios have returned somewhere in the high single digits to low double digits per year over many decades, before fees and tax, but past returns are not a guarantee of future ones. And project it forward to your preservation age. The number will either reassure you or scare you into action. Both outcomes are useful. This is also the stage where a lot of Aussies get their first real introduction to investing outside super, an ASX index fund, an ETF, maybe direct shares. The literacy point that matters here. Understand the difference between a managed fund's ongoing fee, the MER, and brokerage costs, because fees compound against you the same way returns compound for you. A 1% difference in fees sounds small. Over 30 years, it is not small. It's also, frankly, the stage where a lot of financial anxiety has a habit of masquerading as financial literacy. Watching your portfolio daily doesn't make you more informed. It usually just makes you more reactive. The people who do well here check in monthly or quarterly, not hourly. The second rule: your salary is a starting income, not a ceiling. If a side income, a small business, a rental property, or a career pivot is realistically on the table, this decade is when the compounding time horizon still makes it worth the effort. Time is the one input in the wealth equation you cannot buy back later. By this stage, you might be juggling a mortgage, maybe kids, maybe both. This is genuinely the hardest stretch for a lot of Australians financially. The sandwich years, where costs peak at the same time your career is still climbing toward its highest earning point. This is where the mindset needs to mature from saving to allocating. You've probably got several buckets now. Super, an offset account against the mortgage, maybe some shares, maybe an investment property. The financial literacy skill that matters most here is understanding risk concentration. If your super, your job, and your investment property are all tied to the same industry or the same city's property market, you don't have three assets. You have one bet wearing three costumes. A genuinely useful, non-flashy habit at this stage. Review your insurance. Income protection, life insurance, TPD cover, often bundled cheaply inside your super fund by default, but the default settings are frequently wrong for your actual situation. Too little cover or duplicated cover across multiple super funds from old jobs you've forgotten about. This is boring. It is also one of the highest leverage half hours of admin most Australians in their late 30s never get around to doing. On mortgages, an offset account genuinely reduces the interest you pay without locking your money away, which is different from making extra repayments into the loan itself, which can be harder to access later depending on your lender and loan type. Understanding that distinction, offset versus redraw versus extra repayments, is a piece of literacy that gets skipped in most casual money conversations, and it can be worth thousands over the life of a loan. The third rule for this stage: below a certain point, you're mostly buying individual assets one at a time. Past a certain point, those assets start doing work for each other. Equity in one property supports a loan for another. Dividends get reinvested automatically. Your super balance starts throwing off enough earnings that the earnings alone matter more than your next contribution. That crossover point is different for everyone, but the mental shift from acquiring to positioning is the same for almost all of them. This is the decade where a lot of the earlier decisions either pay off or get expensive to fix. It's also, statistically, when a lot of Australians start paying real attention to superannuation for the first time, often triggered by a milestone birthday, or watching parents navigate retirement, or simply getting an annual super statement that finally shows a number with six figures in it. The financial literacy centerpiece here is understanding concessional versus non-concessional super contributions. Concessional contributions, your employer's 12%, plus any salary sacrifice you add on top, are taxed at 15% going in, generally lower than your marginal income tax rate, which is exactly why salary sacrificing into super is one of the more effective legal tax strategies available to middle and higher income earners. There's an annual cap on concessional contributions, and it's indexed periodically, so the exact figure changes. Check the current cap on the ATO or MoneySmart site, rather than relying on an old number from a video you watched 2 years ago. Go over the cap and you pay extra tax, so this isn't a more is always better situation, without doing the sums first. This is also the stage where the catch-up contribution rules matter. If your balance is lower than you'd like, if your total super balance is under a certain threshold, You may be able to carry forward unused concessional cap amounts from previous years. It's a genuinely useful mechanism for anyone who took time out of the workforce, worked part-time for years, or simply didn't understand super earlier in life. Again, check current eligibility rules. They have specific balance thresholds attached. The mindset shift in this decade is sobering for a lot of people. You start doing real retirement projections, not vague ones, and you realize the number you need is bigger than you assumed because you're now pricing in decades of retirement, not just a few years. Life expectancy in Australia is genuinely long by global standards, which is a wonderful problem to have, and also means your money needs to last longer than your grandparents did. The fourth rule: at this stage, wealth stops being primarily about income and starts being about what you no longer have to worry about. Paying down a mortgage, consolidating old super accounts from jobs you left 15 years ago. Seriously, check the ATO's Lost Super Search tool. Unclaimed super in Australia runs into the billions of dollars sitting in old accounts nobody's checked on. And reviewing your estate planning and beneficiary nominations on super. None of this is glamorous. All of it is the actual work of this decade. This stretch is genuinely one of the most rules-heavy periods in Australian personal finance, and it's exactly where a lot of otherwise financially literate people get quietly caught out, because the rules change with your birthday, not with the calendar year. Your preservation age, the age you can generally access your super, is 60 for anyone born after mid-1964, meaning at this point almost everyone reading this falls under that rule. Once you reach it, if you're still working, you may be able to use a transition to retirement (TTR) strategy, drawing a limited income stream from your super while still working, which for some people allows a tax-effective way to ease into retirement or boost contributions in the final working years. Whether TTR actually benefits you depends heavily on your income, your balance, and your specific goals. This is a genuine sit-down with an advisor decision, not a DIY YouTube one. The age pension access age in Australia is currently 67, and eligibility is means tested against both income and assets. It is not automatic just because you've reached the age. Plenty of people with substantial super balances or other assets receive a partial pension, or none at all, and that's by design, not a flaw. Understanding the assets test and income test thresholds, which are reviewed periodically, is core literacy for this decade, because decisions about downsizing a home, gifting money to kids, or restructuring investments can all shift where you land on those tests. The mindset work here is different from every earlier stage. It's less about accumulation and more about sequencing, deciding what order to draw down different pots of money, super, personal savings, investment income, in a way that's tax efficient and sustainable. Because unlike your accumulation years, mistakes here have less time to be corrected by future income. This is the stage almost nobody scripts a motivational video around, because there's no flashy milestone to hit, no crossed a million moment. The milestone here is quieter. Does the money last, and does it let you live the life you actually want, not just survive it? The core literacy point of this stage is the shift from growth thinking to income and longevity thinking. Your super, once you retire, generally moves into what's called the retirement phase, often through an account-based pension, which pays you a regular income stream and has its own minimum annual drawdown rates set by the government, based on your age. These minimums exist, so retirement savings don't just sit untouched forever inside a tax-advantaged structure. You're required to draw down at least a set percentage each year, which increases as you get older. A genuinely under-discussed mindset issue at this stage. Many retirees, out of decades of frugal habit, underspend relative to what their savings could actually support, out of fear of running out. That fear is understandable, but it can mean people who worked 40 years for a comfortable retirement end up living more austerely than they need to. This is exactly why an actual calculated drawdown plan, not a vibe, not a guess, matters more here than at any earlier stage. A good financial advisor earns their fee in this decade specifically by helping people Spend with confidence, not just save with discipline. There's also real financial literacy value in understanding aged care costs and the separate complex funding rules around them, because they can arrive with little warning and interact with both the pension assets test and your family home status in ways that catch people off guard. This is a section of Australian finance that genuinely deserves its own dedicated video. It's too detailed to compress into a few sentences responsibly. The final mindset shift. Wealth in this stage stops being a number on a screen and becomes almost entirely about time and choice. Whether you can see the grandkids' interstate without checking the budget first, whether a health scare is a financial crisis or just a medical one. That's the actual finish line, not a balance. A degree of freedom from having to think about the balance at all. Here's the thing that connects every single one of these stages, from the 20-year-old in the Woolies car park to the retiree working out their pension drawdown. None of it is really about the number. It's about understanding, at each stage, what levers actually exist and pulling the ones that are right for your life, not the version of wealth some stranger on the internet is selling you. Super rules change. Interest rates move. Property prices do what property prices do. What doesn't change is this. The earlier you understand the actual mechanics, not vibes, not hacks, the actual mechanics, the more choices you have later. That's the whole game. Go check your super statement. Go check if you've got lost super sitting somewhere. That's a better use of the next 20 minutes than anything else this video could tell you to do. Reminder, general information only, not personal advice. Rules around super pensions and tax mentioned here are accurate as at mid-2026, but do change. Always confirm current figures and thresholds at ato.gov.au or moneysmart.gov.au, or with a licensed financial advisor before acting.